I've got another series. This is Jennifer from Beacon, and I'm excited to welcome Dr. Rob. And today we're just talking just a few minutes to talk about what's going on end of April. We've all been kind of in this mode now for a good month, almost 6 weeks, it seems like. And just wanted to hear kind of what things that you're doing to help your patients right now, whether it's through telemedicine. I mean, what are your big focuses really during this time? I know it's a really uncertain time, but hopefully it'll help
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah, well, we're kind of sitting dead smack in the middle of this, right? So we have really two major things that we're doing at this point. You know, the patients that we typically deal with are the ones who are at risk, right? So they're the ones with the autoimmune diseases or, just weak immune systems or whatever kind of chronic disease that's going to make somebody susceptible to potentially, being out there and, going back to life. And so we've been working really hard, obviously, to keep them well. And then the other side of it, is, and we've been, fortunate enough to be able to do that. But the other side of it is to try to bring up the level of education of just how things got to this point to begin with, and then what can they continuously do and what can their family members do and what can people who are calling us and us putting out information on the internet, what can people do in order to try to take back some control and have some power over this. It's a bit of a loss of control situation. However this looks, and whenever we come out of this, and whenever the reality of going back to life, health is going to be a prerequisite. It should have always been ultimately, but health is going to be a prerequisite to go back to everyday living. However that looks. It's going to be a matter of, are you healthy enough to, re-enter into public areas? Are you healthy enough to go back to work? And obviously we want to protect people who aren't, but we also want to give solutions to those people and not just say, well, sorry, you drew the short end of the straw. There's nothing you can do about it. But, we ended up in this mess because 60% of the population is walking around with one chronic disease diagnosed and 40% have two chronic disease diagnosed. And that's CDC statistics. And it's something we've been talking about forever, a long time and trying to change those numbers. But, hopefully one glass half full method of this is that, brings the conversation to that. But, not many people are out there doing chronic disease type of work, not doing it well. There's a very different conversation that has to go around trying to get somebody out of chronic disease and getting somebody to focus on their health, which, you have all the cliches like, oh, your health is your greatest wealth. And it is. But now you're definitely seeing that because, like I said, in order to get back to life, you're going to have to be healthy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to be at risk.
That's a perspective I really haven't heard talked about a lot, but I can see that conversation starting to happen as people are starting to talk more about where we're moving forward. We all know we can't go back to the way things were. So for, someone like me general public, I think I represent them fairly well. I'm very fortunate that I don't have a chronic disease that's diagnosed, but I am overweight. I am working really hard on my health. I mean, what advice would you give somebody like me that is just, going, okay, what do I need to really focus on to kind of prepare myself, build immunity? I mean, is it maybe the weight loss, or what else would you say?
No, that's a huge chunk of it. And I think the other bright side of this, and there's not been many, but the one bright side is it's bought a lot of us time. And time is another incredibly valued commodity, but it's always about how do you use that time, right? So how do you use that time effectively to, maybe look into some health stuff that's outside of the box? Because again, we deal with the worst of the worst in kind of these chronic conditions and autoimmunity and all that sorts of stuff. And we get it well, which is great, but we have to do it a little bit outside of the box. A lot of the conventional methodologies that's there, we need a little bit of high-tech ability to be able to kind of pull that apart and kind of really figure out what's going on somebody and repair some of those things, But taking that time to do that research and then taking that time to focus on big things. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of conversation right now about vitamin D being an important factor in this. And, again, it's also why you're seeing huge differences between the different types of skin types, what we call your Fitzgerald score. It's how dark your skin is. The darker your skin is, the less vitamin D you'll typically have because the more sunlight exposure that you'll typically get. And most of us, I know we're all in this together. I'm included in this. We're in our offices, right? I'm in my office. I'm treating patients and stuff like that. But, the idea of like that stay at home, but be outside. Be safe, do what you need to do, but get that sunlight on your skin. I can't tell you how many times I deal with people with chronic disease and we sit down and all their vitamin Ds are low. And, there's something about taking it if you live in an environment where, maybe sunlight's not going to be the best thing, you can do it. But one of my favorite researchers always says taking vitamin D is like paying someone to do push-ups for you.
I love that.
It's a great line. One of my favorite researchers. It's not my line. I got to give credit where credit is due. My favorite research says that. But it's true. Like, it gets done, but you don't get the full spectrum benefit of it. And getting into the sun is a huge component of that. Protecting your sleep. Making sure you're getting sleep. You heal at night. And so many times when we get stuck out of our typical patterns, people's sleeping times get crazy. They stay up later because they can sleep in a little bit in the morning.
Sure.
But protecting your sleep and making sure all of that stuff is still right and done the right way, because that's, ultimately you can do all the stuff to heal, but if you don't sleep, you don't. You don't get that healing side of it. And of course, monitoring your food intake and stuff like that. What fuel are you going to put into your body? It's really easy, when things are down or you're locked in the house. Everyone's talking about the quarantine 19, everybody running to the fridge every 2 seconds to get food, and what's in that, in that source of food that you're getting. I mean, focusing on these things and mental aspects of it. I mean, these are huge things that we have, like high-tech ways of kind of getting from A to B a lot faster. The reason that we usually get sick is because we kind of gotten away from all of the basics. The more we learn, the more we figure out its basic ideology of health. It's fascinating. We get more fancy and we have more effective ways of measuring that and dealing with it. But the reason we find out that everyone got sick is because we lost our way and we kind of got away from nature and what our body actually needs. And we're going to have to get to a point now where we start really being more focused on health and giving the body what it needs rather than saying, well, I'm going to push on this until it crashes. And that's so, people are always terrified to go to doctors. And well, I'm terrified to see my blood work because they know they're waiting for that other shoe to fall. What was he going to say this time? Well, yeah, that's going to either be the case or you could be prepping for it. And I don't like to be surprised.
Right. Well, if that is something positive I hope that is something positive that comes out of that, because people are, I was forced to slow down. Everybody I know on some level has been forced to just kind of take stock a little bit in decisions you're making. And I was just talking to my husband about this sun, and we were on a wonderful hike last night in the sun. The sun's up here till 10 o'clock at night. It's so great. But we were talking about, we have the opportunity right now to really look at what things in life do we not want to bring back.
Yeah.
What things do we want to carry forward? And the things that weren't working that we just felt like we had to do, well, some of those have been taken away. So what can we choose forward? And it is a little bit simpler.
Yeah, it kind of brings us all back to family and those important conversations. It's funny because I've been in more contact with people, even though maybe not necessarily physically, like I've been calling and texting and emailing and stuff, just checking up on friends and people and stuff like that. I feel like I've been in more contact now than I sometimes I even had in the past, and it's opened up some of those conversations, which is again an important part of the human condition of living. I always tell people, you get healthy so you can live. You don't live to get healthy. Right? You can't spend your entire life just trying to build your health, because then at some point, all of our time here is finite, right? Like nobody gets to stay forever. We check out at some point. But what can you do to build your health so that it doesn't impede on your life? And like I said, right now, that's going to be a big thing of where is important places you put emphasis on your health. There's certain people who have to do all that big work to get it back. But then once you do get it back, how do you keep it so that you can go out unimpeded and do whatever you want to do and go back to work and not have to worry, because worry and fear is a killer too. Watching the other great thing, watching your content.
Yeah.
The internet is a great, wonderful resource and everything else like that, but there is a lot of, you get inundated with it. I mean, even I've had to do. I'm on researching. I've been inundated with research. But there's been moments where even I've had to put it down and say, okay, it's time to stop and disconnect and try to go look at something else, because otherwise this becomes all consuming. And, you go on Netflix and the first movie that's listed is Outbreak.
Right.
It's a great movie, but it's not exactly, it's not exactly what you want to be filling your head with at this point. And, I always laugh because I live very real life. We're in the weeds with patients who have really, severe conditions and stuff like that. So when I go home, I'm looking for something light. I'm looking for something funny. I'm not looking for heavy duty. I don't want a dose of real life. I got plenty all day. I want
Sure.
something kind of light. And I think we all need to kind of focus on that too, that laughter. And like I said, just getting back to basics, you know, what makes us happy.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I mean, really, I'm really excited about this particular talk that we got to talk about this because everybody I've been talking to, you know, we're focused on economy and all those things really matter, of
They're
course, and
important.
that's part of living and part of life. But it really does come down to our health being the great differentiator of how we're going to help each other move forward.
Yeah. And we'll have to do it together.
Absolutely. Well, okay, I will put a link to your information in this. So if anybody, can anybody call you outside of your area, or are you
Yeah,
mainly?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Telemedicine, anything else that we can do to make advice. If someone's dealing with something, they just want advice where to go. Absolutely. We're always available.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Robert. Really appreciate your time.
You're welcome.